Hey y'all, welcome. Today we're starting a new series on shadow work in a way that is actionable as opposed to just theoretical. It's a practical approach to shadow work. So, we're going to be talking about it in terms of 5 steps. So I've broken down shadow work and really an intuitive approach to shadow work, which I've written about in my new book that I will be announcing pre-orders for quite soon, which is an intuitive approach to going about this work. Now, shadow work is psychological in its origins. It's a term that was coined by Dr. Carl Jung, and then in more recent years, it's taken on a more spiritual self-help approach. I blended those two things together because I think they're both quite valuable and really looked at it in terms of what are 5 actionable steps that we can take to engage in shadow work that is effective and successful, because that's the most important part. If shadow work, the idea of it just remains theoretical, then it doesn't really do us much good. And I feel like a lot of the stuff out there about shadow work is quite theoretical. So we're going to make it practical so that you can actually, practice it. Firstly, just simply put, some of you may know what shadow work is, others may have heard of it, but not be that well acquainted with what it actually is at its core. So, simply put, the shadow is every part of ourselves that have been relegated to our subconscious. Parts of ourselves that usually existed within childhood or younger years that were just shoved into our bag of shadows. That's a term coined by Robert Bly. He talks about our shadow as the long bag we drag behind us. And so it's all the parts of ourselves that are in that bag, right? The unconscious parts. So everything about us that went into that bag of shadows in our earlier years that was sent there out of our need to adapt, survive, be loved, be accepted, all of those things. So, shadow work is the process of retrieving, opening up that bag of shadows and retrieving all of our lost parts, bringing them into the light of our consciousness for integration so that we're whole. That's it. That we're whole. And there's no aspects of ourselves in our subconscious that are affecting our choices, right? Are we acting from a place of complete awareness, right? Of wholeness, where we have all of the information about ourselves, who we are, how we feel, what we like, what we believe in? Are we operating from a script that's being dictated by, it's like a redacted script, right? Of our life and how we feel and who we are and what we dream of, that we want to pull out of that bag and kind of, clear it up, like take those redacted aspects and fill in the blanks here. So that's what shadow work is in its basis form. So 5 steps to shadow work. The first step is willingness. Seems like a small one, but it's a big one. Willingness is usually the first step to any great feat, but I look at it in this way. Willingness is really about, if our shadow is in the back seat of the car, right? The willingness is about being willing to look in that back seat, look in that rearview mirror and go, okay, whew, shadow, I may not know exactly what you're comprised of. I don't even really know what I'm in for. I don't know what I'm going to find when I go digging around in this bag of shadows. I don't know. I don't know. I imagine it's not going to be entirely pleasant. There might be some happy surprises in there too. I might find the best parts of myself that have been lost along the way. But there's going to be some uncomfy bits, because if it was entirely comfortable, it would have been put in the bag in the first place, right? So, okay, shadow, I'm willing. Climb up into the passenger seat. Come up out of the back seat. Come up into the passenger seat. That's the willingness. I am willing to take that first step, embrace the unknown, and shine a light into my unconscious. You know, there's a quote by Carl Jung that I really feel like sums that up really well, and I hope I don't butcher it, but it's shadow work is the path of the heart warrior. Do you know what kind of, sometimes I think about what kind of different place the world would be if more people engaged in this work, if more people were able and willing to look at their darkness and bring it into the light of their consciousness. So, you being willing to do that is the absolute first step, and in some ways, the most important one. 2 is curiosity. So, curiosity is the key that opens every door that fear keeps locked. That's it. It's just like a child, right? That curiosity of a child where there's no fear, there's no hesitation. It's just a world of openness and question and wonder, and that kind of curiosity is the second step, because it's how we're being called to approach opening that bag and pulling things out of it, right? There's gonna be fear involved. There just is. It's just what it is. It's part of it, right? Fear of the unknown, fear of not being able to unknow what you learn, right? All of that, how it's gonna change you. So curiosity again, choosing to be curious, choosing to adopt that outlook on this process. It's going to open the doors that fear has kept locked and closed off from you. It makes all the difference in the world. And it's just, sometimes it's simple as just remembering that and choosing it. I'm going to be curious about this and not afraid. I choose curiosity. I choose curiosity. Step 3 is judgment. So, judgment. This is a tricky one. This is a very tricky one. Judgment oftentimes leads to shame in this work. So, when we start looking at, when we start, we're halfway through, right? We're looking at everything in our bag of shadows. We're going through, hurts that we suffered as a child, or hurts that in ways in which we hurt other people, all of the things. And it is so human, and it is so easy to judge ourselves and judge the other people involved in the formation of that shadow memory, right? Go, I'm assigning a negative feeling to that. That's judgment, right? So instead of falling into that trap and getting stuck in judgment, right, which can absolutely happen. I was there for a while myself on the third step of judgment. It's forgiveness. I forgive myself for the choices that I made when I didn't know any better. I forgive others for the choices that they made that negatively impacted me. I forgive everyone and everything. And it doesn't have to be something that, you do immediately. It's just about setting that intention, which is going to unlock that door to the next step, which is acceptance, right? These two were so linked, judgment into acceptance. It was really non-judgment, right? Not getting stuck in judgment. Because acceptance for me, I'll tell you this is the hardest step for me. I have had years of being stuck and not being able to move past acceptance, not being able to really accept really how different my life could have been, the different choices I would have made if I had done this work years ago, all of those thoughts that can happen, right? The woulda, coulda, shouldas. And it's really accepting that, okay, I know what I know now, and now I'm going to choose to look at this through the lens of not and there can be a part of grieving the life that you could have lived, grieving what's been lost, right? Grieving your younger self, whatever that is for you. What got me through acceptance is looking at what the future could be, not mourning what has been, or at least not staying in the mourning of what has been, but really focusing on the future of what if, what could be, and the joy of potential. That is the key to moving through that bit of acceptance. It's again, depending, you might get stuck at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, all of them, along the way. But for me, acceptance, this was the biggest stumbling block for me. And some of these steps are going to take longer than others. Some, you might get right into willingness and be like, I've been willing to do this for years. I just needed a manual to get there. Others might take longer to get through, curiosity. It's like, oh, I'm scared to look. I'm scared to know. So be patient with yourself, right? These are actionable steps, but they don't have a time limit on it. And you might get to step 4, acceptance, and need to go right up back to willingness because you're struggling with something and you might not want to do it anymore, right? This process has taken me years and it's ongoing, by the way. It's never done. So be patient with yourself and remember that it's not a linear experience. But as long as you're showing up from a place of willingness, that is the magic. That is the way forward and through. That is shadow work, being willing. So the last step is integration. This is where you walk that walk and talk that talk. It's where you now have a very new self-awareness, a very strong self-awareness, right? And then the question comes, what changes are you willing to make, right? That are reflective of that new knowing? Because you can learn, and I've been here too. You can become reacquainted with your shadow. You can learn all of these things and rediscover yourself, and even be reunited with wonderful aspects of yourself that were lost to time, like childhood gifts, your intuition. So often our intuition is one of the first things that we put in that brackish shadows when we're younger, and shadow work can be a journey of reclaiming our intuition, right? Regardless of what it is, it's one thing to know it. It's another thing to go, okay, how does my life change? Actually change. not just theoretical change, but actually change as a result of this shadow work. What choices can I make? Small little choices and big choices on a daily basis that reflect this work. Because something that I've learned is that shadow work is not something that we just do in a vacuum. It's something that we're always doing. There's always going to be opportunities to, sit with that shadow and get to know it better, all these different aspects of ourselves. And it's got to be something that is continuously woven into the fabric of our lives. Because as humans, we're also going to have new experiences all the time where, oh, I wasn't aware of this. I got to go back to step number one and then go back to, let me skip ahead to four and then, oh, okay. There's always going to be just like an onion, right? There's always going to be layers upon layers upon layers. And one of my favorite things about shadow work is that idea of I've done the work. I've done the work. I healed that trauma. I reclaimed that part of myself. Well, you reclaimed it and you did that, but you're going to get into a new relationship. You're going to start a new job. You're going to move somewhere. You're going to whatever it is. And that's going to provide an opportunity for another layer of that healing to occur that couldn't occur in the situation that you were in when you initially did that work around it. It really is a lifelong process. And I also think that lastly, if we can view this work, through a lens of potential and joy and discovery, then it kind of takes some of the heaviness out of it. Because the reality is this is not, if this were easy, if this were like, a walk in the park on a sunny day, everyone would do it and the world would be in a much different place, right? But this is challenging. It's life changing. It's essential. It's magical. It's all of these wonderful things, but it's not entirely comfortable, right? Shadow work is the path of the heart warrior, right? It takes a lot more guts, chutzpah, moxie to look at these darker parts of ourselves, bring them out, and integrate them into our lives for healing. This is not easy. But if you're watching this, right? If you are a seeker, if you are interested in aligning with your happiest life and removing the blocks that are keeping you from that happiest potential in your soul's purpose, then this is for you. And you're going to know if you're feeling called to do this, right? When the right time for this is for you. But ultimately, I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to walk you through it, how to approach this intuitively. And that's what we're going to be talking about, as the series goes on, is an intuitive approach to shadow work. I'm going to take you through all of these steps and we're going to talk about how to do it in a way that is unique and personal for you. Because for me, I learned a lot about shadow work in my years of therapy, just on and off over my life. But ultimately, what truly worked for me was doing this for myself with the help of my intuition, enlisting my ancestors, my guides, everything that, exists inside of me, because I know me better than anyone else. I just have to go and access that knowing, right? So this personalized approach, this intuitive approach is something that I'm so excited to share with you. And I want to share with you because collectively we are witnessing, we are experiencing the darkest expression of the collective shadow. What we can do in terms of actionable steps, right, as we witness this, as we are a part of this, is to acknowledge our individual expressions of that collective shadow, because we are here right now for a reason. We are witnessing this for a reason. We all have a different role to play. And ultimately, if we can look at our own darkness and illuminate it and bring it into the light of our consciousness and make choices from a place of self-awareness, self-love, curiosity, willingness, acceptance, right? Then that will, I truly believe, have a domino effect. So again, I'm really excited to go on with this series with you. Please let me know in the comments, how does this hit you? What do you think about all this? Does any of this sound familiar? How is shadow work and the idea of it translate to what we're talking about here and the steps and how you might actually go about engaging in this? I want to hear from you. I love to hear from you. I've talked about this a bit briefly recently, that I've written a book about this very, very thing that goes into this in a lot more detail. This is just to give you sort of a precursor to that, and I'll be announcing pre-orders for that soon. You guys have been asking, quite soon. And with that being said, I'm sending you guys all of the love and light, my fellow shadow workers. I'm very excited. If you are feeling a call to be a shadow worker with me, then it's a very important calling indeed. I'm sending you all the love in the world, and just thank you so much for being here. And as always, most of all, thank you for being you, and be well. Until next time.